Hey guys, what is up? It's Dusty here and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Crypto News. And today, like I promised, we're going to be talking about the Ripple v SEC lawsuit. Alright, having said that, let's quickly take a little bit of a look at what James Phelan just posted as he put, updated, schedule, and status as of January 25th, 2022. Now that date might surprise you because, well, it is the 28th right now, but it's still relevant, and it's actually more important now after we got ourselves a couple more updates. Thanks again to Status for the excellent graphics, and let's take a little bit of a look. So, our first official deadline is the February 17th. Deadline for the SEC to file any motion for a reconsideration of Magistrate Judge Netburn's deliberative process privilege opinion and order. Once more, guys, I am not a financial nor legal advisor, but we've been studying the Ripple v. SEC case for a little while, and I think we got a good grasp and idea of what these things mean. So once more, take everything with a small pinch of salt, as I'm just a random guy on the internet trying to interpret and make sense out of these things. So this specific one here is that the SEC basically said, hey, you, judge, recently made an order on what we can and cannot hide from the public. We don't think you did a good job. Here's some additional documents. And to file those documents, to give that information, to make the judge reconsider something, they have to basically file a specific letter that exactly 1 week and 1 day afterwards, the Ripple can respond to again. So that's basically, in a normal sense, this would be the judge makes a decision and people can re-appeal that if the judge, for example, made a miscalculation or she looked over something. However, that's a little bit more difficult and that works a little bit differently when they're trying to put new evidence into it. And that's why Ripple said, hold up, wait a minute, we don't think you should be doing that. But the people in the expert community said, well, the judge most likely allowed them to file this brief because then eventually after the case is settled or after a couple months, they can't all of a sudden say, oh yeah, but there were some mistakes in this or that. No, because we've reconsidered it even. We went through all the different options, so there's no more appeal possibilities eventually, or at least lessened. So 25th of February, deadline for Ripple defendants to respond to the SEC's motion for reconsideration of Magistrate Judge Netburn's deliberative process and privilege opinion and order. As I just said, but Ripple then now has to respond to that. The 28th, deadline for completion of expert discovery. The deadline for either party to file an objection to District Judge Torres for Magistrate Judge Netburn's deliberative process privilege opinion and order is stayed until 14 days from a decision on the SEC's motion for reconsideration. So we have to basically wait on whatever is going to come out of the motion for reconsideration to conclude anything in that sense. But the official deadline for this discovery phase is February 28th, which has been excelled, or how do you call it? Delayed time and time and time again, as the original date had to be November 12th or something like that. It's been crazy. All right. Then into the main and juicy stuff, there were a number of items outstanding from Judge Netburn's October 21st order regarding earlier discovery disputes, many of which have been completed. These were the following. 1. The SEC, in responding to Ripple's interrogatories, had to specifically identify any term in any XRP sales contract that created an expectation of profits. There are approximately 1,500 contracts. Those answers are due by December 6th. So, by the way, in this exact sense here, we do not know whether or not they've been completed or what exactly happened to these things. And that's not random. It's because, as far as I know, right, whether or not they've completed it makes no difference to us, the public. Ripple and the SEC are discussing these things internally, and whether a judge basically orders you to do something doesn't necessarily mean you have to file it as a docket. It basically just means, hey, hand something over to us, I think, right? Because we've covered before that a couple of lawyers said, if there's some ongoing disputes, it doesn't necessarily mean that the SEC has to file everything to the public every single time. It just means that they, now by definition basically, have to hand it over to Ripple because that's what was requested. And to file a docket only needs to be done if something needs to go through the judge again, or something along those lines. Now, in this specific case here, I'm not exactly sure if that's the case, in the sense that Ripple just got him, and so it's fine now, and there's been no dispute, or whether or not it's something else, which theoretically speaking is possible too. That, for example, it was due, but it's just not been delivered. We'll have to see, because this is pretty interesting. The SEC also had to answer whether efforts by Ripple were necessary to affect any increase in the price of XRP that as it was due by December 6th as well. We didn't really see too much on that, as far as I now know. The SEC had to respond to 309 requests for admission relating to the defendant's defense under Morrison, yada, 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 that XRP sales occurred offshore. Those responses were due that day as well. Responses. Yet again, I haven't seen much about it, so we can still think, because I'm thinking in my head, right, that maybe something is going to come out of this still that has just not been posted for some reason, but we're like 2 months further, so it would be kind of strange if they're this late. Then again, I'm not exactly sure what the debate on that could be. If you guys smash that like button though, guys, the moment we hit 1,500 likes on one of these videos, I'm going to try and get Jeremy Hogan, a lawyer, on the channel again, all right? Or if you guys try really hard, we're going to get James Fillon on. How? I have absolutely no clue, but then at least I'll try. All right. The SEC has to answer whether the XP ledger was fully functional when the XRP distribution started in 2013, but there first needs to be a meet and confer, where again they come together between counsel for Chris Larsen and the SEC to clarify the term fully functional. We don't know if that meet and confer has already occurred. However, the order directing it was over 3 months ago, and so it's reasonable to conclude that this meet and confer has already taken place and that they do have some answers to some. Then we have the SEC answered numerous interrogatories by incorporating, by reference, its answers to other interrogatories. Magistrate Judge Netburn ordered the SEC to go back and clean up the answers in which it referenced an answer in a previous interrogatory and instead answered separately as required. That basically means, hey, you can't answer an answer by saying, oh, we already answered it before. No, you got to answer it separately yet again. And that's what the SEC has to kind of clean up. This is from previous questions, interrogatory meaning questions, basically, that Ripple asked the SEC. There were some of them. The SEC also has to respond to 700, basically, questions again that relate to Ripple's fair notice defense, but Judge Netburn gave the SEC until 30 days after Judge Torres rules on the motion to strike the fair notice defense to provide these responses. If the SEC's motion to strike is granted, then the SEC won't have to answer those requests. The motion to strike is still pending, so the SEC has not responded to these requests for admission just quite yet. All right. We do not know if the following has been completed from previous discovery decisions. And the crazy part about it is, guys, is that when we look... Okay, people are racing. I'm not sure if you guys can hear that. Put it down below if you guys can hear people racing outside. It's the crazy Dubai, you know, so that's what you hear all day, kind of. About all of these, like the majority of them, I'm not really sure if they've been done or not. This was within the schedule. This is what's going on. But it's hard to say because a lot of these things should have been delivered, but they're in the background. But we'll get to that in just a second. Ripple was ordered to produce relevant Slack messages, like 1 million of them, involving 22 custodians. Ripple stated it could take as long as 12 weeks to complete. We don't know if they're still doing that or if it's been done. And we're not seeing the judge order or a document via the judge, so most likely it went fine, or they're still busy. Ripple was also ordered to search and produce video and audio tape recordings of internal Ripple meetings, where key Ripple employees spoke on topics relevant to disputes in the lawsuit. Judge Netburn placed limitations on the searches and ordered the parties to meet and confer about how, when, what, and which would most likely have the best response. And we haven't heard anything since the November 8th order, so we're assuming that this took place, or there's been no update on this because it's less important. We don't know. All right, we don't know. So what are we still waiting for? What are we waiting for? What's going on? All right. Once more, this was what was going on before. This is what we don't know. And then here is what we are waiting for. Motion to strike, most important one. And then we have the individual defendants, which are Brad Garlinghouse and Chris Larsen's motions to dismiss. Those two things are by far the most important of this entire lawsuit and what is going on right now, what we're waiting for. The fair notice defense, however, actually has a couple of different parts in the sense that we need to have a ruling on the deliberative process privilege first, as that basically decides what information Ripple can get, should have gotten, and what the SEC knew internally. Because think about it, guys. The deliberative process privilege, it basically has inside of it every single thing, which, and the privilege is what is not encompassing, I should say. Every single thing that the SEC knew about Ripple, XRP, Bitcoin, Ether, whatever, but also what they really thought and what they made public and everything like that. So if we do not have that, what it basically says, as far as I know, is that since Ripple hasn't gotten it just quite yet, But you can't make a ruling on what Ripple should have known, and so you can't make a ruling on whether or not there was a lack of due process or fair notice, because that information needs to be out there. If the judge does deny this motion for reconsideration, which we just talked about, or no, she did already say yes, you can file it. If she cites, however, that they reconsidered it, or at least didn't reconsider because it was not necessary in this motion for reconsideration, then most likely the next big part is going to be Ripple looking through whatever the SEC wrote down and then adding something to their lack of due process fair notice defense. Or the SEC may be attacking it further with some supplemental whatever. I don't think that's, again, officially possible though, right? Because I believe now the judge just has to make a decision. Then again, it would make sense if, due to all the stuff the SEC is hiding, once Ripple gets that, they can kind of add to their claims for why they couldn't have had fair notice. But we'll have to see about how that turns out over the next couple of weeks as we, again, over a couple of, I guess, 3 weeks still here, has this to go over. And that's going to be critical for number one, which, again, kind of makes things annoying because this drags the lawsuit out even more. And then 2 is the motion to dismiss, which again is regarding Brad Garlinghouse and Chris Larson and whether or not they have to be involved in the lawsuit. But for that, we, for example, need things like this right here. We basically need the previous little completed or not completed parts. Like literally almost every single thing you see right here is relevant for the motion to dismiss. Because, for example, these talks that they went through, they can decide. I really hope, by the way, that I'm showing my small screen, not the big screen. Let me actually quickly check again. If I didn't show small screen, now at least I am. This number 1 and 2 here, basically. These two are mostly revolving, I guess even every single one of them is revolved around what Brad Garlinghouse and what Chris Larson could have known, right? And so the most important part with that, as far as I can think of, is if it comes out that really they didn't know too much and they should be left out, those messages will make it apparent. Or if the SEC wants to try it, those messages might help, if you guys get my drift. So also that one, we're kind of waiting for some further confirmation. But I guess number 2 can be decided at any one point because we don't know what happened to the majority of these things. But number 1 here, we definitely have to wait until the end of February before some decision will be made, which is annoying, but that's the way it goes. Now, no argument dates have been set regarding the motion to dismiss or the motion to strike, and my understanding is that the district judge does not always hear oral argument. The deadline for the parties to exchange their responsive statements of material facts pursuant to local civil rule 56.1 and the pre-motion letters regarding motions to summary judgment was adjourned, signed D, or sine D, which means no specific date set, pending resolution of the motion to dismiss and strike, which basically means right now they have no deadline for the next phase, because some decisions have not been made, which again are kind of making it take longer. But hey, that's how the system works. That's how things are going. And guys, that was it for today's little episode and video. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed it. Hopefully you learned something new. It's just the schedule. What is the schedule? Well, we have a couple of things to wait out for, and that's specifically these two. It's actually just one issue, basically. The end of expert discovery actually does not mean too much because we have to wait for these decisions and then for the judge to make a decision on the motion to strike, potentially also motion to dismiss, to set a date for the next summary judgment filing, basically, the papers for that deadline. And that's going to basically put things back into motion. So it's really annoying in a sense that we do not have that much clarity about how things are going to roll out. But that's because a lot of things are happening behind closed doors. Yet again, it's one of the craziest cases in the world. I'm happy to follow it. If there's ever a freaking phone call again, you guys already know I'm on it, which has been months and months and months, right? It's been crazy. But I think it's going to be a lot of fun over the next couple of months as we're going to make, hopefully, juicy gains. That was it for today's video, guys. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you press the like button and subscribe. And I'll see you guys again in another crypto video.